Hello members, I'm here today with our course superintendent, Rod Tatt. Welcome Rod.
Thanks Troy.
Good, there's been a lot happening over the last number of months, particularly after COVID kicked in. Really important for us to keep members informed about what's happening on the golf course. And so today we're just going to talk through a number of things that have happened, things that are currently happening, and then some stuff that's planned for the future. So it's great having you here at the club. You've been here a couple of years now, so you've settled in?
2 years, yeah.
2 years, good. So you've seen all seasons so far in Perth coming from Melbourne. The big thing that's happened over recent times is our greens. And so we took the opportunity to take the greens out of play for 3 months, did a major renovation on those greens and an overseeding program with a new bent grass, 007. It's now some time since we've reopened the greens, and the members have seen quite a few things happen since reopening. How have they gone? What's the way the plan's worked out? Is it working well?
Yeah, the program's worked really well. Obviously, renovating was a big thing back in, April, and then we sowed them down with the bent grass 007 in, I think it was about the 1st of May. So yeah, it's really gone to plan. Obviously we had a lot of poa germinate over the winter period as we expected, but we've treated that with poa cure, and we're still treating that. We've got another one to go probably this week, and then obviously we'll still have some poa visible, but next year is probably the year we'll keep going with that program and really get the greens as clean as we can. So we'll have a bit of poa over the summer, but really now we're just presenting the surface and making sure that we present for the club championships and going forward. So yeah, the program has worked really well. We've got a really good germination of 007, and really happy. Yeah.
Yep. So the poa cure, we've spoken a lot about that in recent times. It's a new product on the market. Is it as good as we've hoped and expected?
Yeah, I mean, we trialled it back in 2012, back in Melbourne, and we thought it was a fantastic chemical, very, very safe on the bent grass, no damage to the bent grass at all, which was, apart from other chemicals on the market that actually do hurt the bent grass. This is really much close to the silver bullet as we've had. So it's been fantastic.
So there's a number of greens on the golf course where we have different percentages of poa. Recently we took the 10th green out of play sporadically for about a week. What was the reason for that?
Just to rest it. I mean, obviously we're getting a lot of play. Our rounds of golf are well up this year with COVID and everything. So we just wanted to rest the green and allow the bent grass to recover and take and fill in those voids where the poa annua had sort of dropped out with the poa cure. So. And it's come a long way in 2 weeks, so it's been great to actually just give it a rest and allow the new bent grass to recover in those areas. So.
Yeah. Now we've slowly lowered our mowing heights. I think coming out of the renovation they were sitting at about 5 mil. We were talking earlier, we've just dropped that down to 3 mil today. Now our mowing practices, you want to touch on that? I mean, we use what we call triple X's, which are for the greens, which are the ride-ons, but the hand mowing, which we see the guys out there hand mowing with a brush on the front. Do you want to explain what that technique is and why we don't do that every day of the week?
Yeah, I guess starting with the mowing heights, we obviously kept them pretty high through winter, allowing the new 007 to take hold and establish. Then obviously over the last few weeks we've just gradually lowered to our normal mowing height to 3 mil now as of today. So yeah, the greens are putting well now.
So we're coming into the warmer months. We're now coming towards the end of October. Club championships for the men and the women's coming up, which is exciting. Sometimes it's deemed, well, we get the course presented and the greens presented for an event. But that's not the intent, is it? The greens we really want to see continue right through from here on.
We've got them now. We've got a good grass coverage, so probably the best density grass coverage we've had for a long time. And that really sets us up for a good summer. Obviously, a deep root system as well, deeper root system than we've had.
When you say a deep root system, what depth are our roots at the moment?
We're down around sort of 60 mil, 70 mil in some cases. So, compared to end of summer last year, we were probably at sort of 25 mil. So. They're a lot deeper and more well structured, so sets up better for a hot summer.
Yep. Yeah. So I question you daily on the greens. I know we get a lot of questions from our members on the greens. We've always said that there is a plan that this will progress through, and we'll go through, in essence, a renovation practice. The greens will go a little bit backwards as the poa starts to melt out, as we say. But what we are seeing now as the warmer months is it's coming to fruition, and it's almost pretty much as per scheduled.
Yeah.
Really excited for now the months to come.
When we talk about Poa annua, it's a winter grass, so it's a true annual winter grass, and it's generally dead in the summer unless we keep it alive. So, but the bent grass, I mean, it's a cool season grass as well, but it's a lot stronger and can tolerate the heat. So, generally over summer we'll lose a bit of Poa anyway, just from the summer stresses in the Poa. So. But getting back to the mowing, we obviously like to use hand mowers pretty much all week, but we just, depending on what's on with staff numbers, it takes sort of 3 or 4 staff to actually mow the greens with hand mowers, so we use a triplex otherwise. But the brushes obviously at the front of the mower help brush up that grass and cut it a bit finer.
So that gives it a lift and then a nice clean cut off the top.
Cuts a nice fine, and it takes that sort of grain or that scuffiness out of the bent grass, which you see sometimes of the older bent grass laying down. So that sort of brushes it up before we mow it.
So we're at 3 mil. Is that the optimal height? Will we maintain that now? Or?
Yeah, we'll stay at around 3.
Yep.
To be honest, I don't think the members would notice if we were lifting up 1/2 mil or 1/4 mil now. Now the greens are putting well, and we've got a good service on them. The mowing heights is really just a number, and it's what else we do to produce the speed and that sort of thing. So, and obviously, today they're probably rolling closer to 11 foot, and that's bordering on probably too quick for some people. But we keep an eye on the green speeds, but we don't sort of really.
We hear that term stimp. Stimp
we've got
rating.
a stimp meter in the shed. It's really just for us to sort of measure some greens. If they're a little bit too paced, some greens might be a little bit slower than others. We can check that. But in terms of telling a number each day, well, that's really not. Okay. We're just trying to keep them smooth as we can and rolling well. So
good. All right. Well, I'm excited about the greens as where they're at now and where they're going to go for the future. Hopefully, members are as well. But just as important, not just the greens. We've got a whole golf course. It's really important that we present the course in its best condition as much as we possibly can. We've spoken about, and members probably see around the place, there's a number of areas which may not be as healthy as we would like, particularly around bunker edges, some of the surrounds on greens. Can we just touch a little bit on that and what we've got now that we're coming into the warmer months, what we've got planned ahead?
Yeah, obviously there's, over winter we've got couch grass in all those areas, so that's a grass that's going dormant and it's not growing. We've got a lot of traffic, so there's a lot of pinch points around the course where traffic is, pinching down to sort of almost a couple of metres across, and you've got all that field, the whole field going through there with golf carts and play. So there's that stress. There's also tree roots that are nearby. So there's a lot of trees around greens and all those little areas where the traffic is, that creates an extra stress, moisture and that sort of thing, and shade. So, and then there's also irrigation. So there's some areas of the course where, and in those areas where we need to have extra irrigation put in. But it's more about probably tree removal in some areas and really allowing more sort of room for players to walk through. So over the next few weeks we'll be doing some like turfing and plugging of those areas where we can.
Now we've spoken in recent times about, because there are a number of areas that we have turf previously and they seem to drop off again. Now you hear this term nematode, which is commonly used and it's probably thought more around the green surfaces, but is that one of our concerns?
Yeah, that's another thing we have to deal with. And all around the fairway bunkers, mostly anywhere where the bunkers have been reconstructed over the years, there's been sodding, turfing of couch, and everywhere that sod's gone down there's been issues with nematodes. So we've done some recent counts and numbers on nematodes, and there's certainly activity in there of the sting type nematode. So not every nematode is bad. There's some beneficial nematodes, but obviously when things get out of balance and we have problems with the sting nematode type, then obviously we have issues with the turf and poor root system. So again, through that winter period, the nematodes are taking hold into early spring, and the couch is really not strong enough at that point. It's not growing hard enough to actually outgrow it. But you can probably see in some areas that it's starting to recover. We are treating some areas with some nematicide, and just trying to get them through and get a full coverage there. But I think down the track, obviously long term, we're doing any reconstruction work like the rear of 17th Green. We actually put some compost into that area and trying to give the sand a little bit of amendment so we can combat those nematodes a bit easier.
Yep.
And it can stand up to the traffic, so a lot better in those traffic areas. But yeah, there's an ongoing issue with those turfed areas around bunkers. We did spray herbicide. Obviously, we spray the golf course to control POA. So one herbicide we use on the fairways, which is a pre-emergent herbicide, that actually can damage the root system on the plant, and if it's under stress. Generally the turf's pretty good, it's fine. But around those bunkers where we've got weak turf, we have had a bit of damage from that chemical. So next year, obviously, we can't be spraying those areas, but for POA control, so we have to do other things in that area. So.
Now, tee boxes, we've noticed a few tees being played forward of tees. Do you want to just touch on those, because we have taken a couple of tees out of play, and maybe what happened with 9 and where we're at with that, and what's happening now moving forward with that tee and some of the others around the golf course.
Yeah, 9 and 11 were the two that really struggled through the winter. There's another couple there, the 4th, obviously the shade, it's quite shaded there over winter. And the high amount of traffic we had through COVID and sort of into the spring period, high number of rounds, excessive wear. So the tee sizes themselves are quite small in some areas, some holes. So that hopefully be addressed in the master plan. We can actually expand some of those tee sizes, especially the par 3s, like 6 and 8, they're quite small for par 3s. But 9 and 11, we had an issue there back in autumn with the herbicide that we were using. Again, that's sort of weak tees, they get shaded in winter, so we used a product that wasn't going to hurt the root system to control POA. We had a malfunction with the spreader and actually went out a bit higher rate than it was supposed to on those 2 tees, and we had a little bit of a burn. So that kind of set them back going into winter, and then we obviously had all that play and traffic, and then the shade and things compounded, and to the point where we, pretty thin, almost no grass on a couple of those areas of those tees. So we did a bit of oversowing there in the last few months, or last couple of weeks, sorry, and slowly getting there. The coots are slowly starting to grow through, but if we go to sod those tees, then we're going to be out of play for a few weeks, or maybe a month or so. So we wanted to keep them in play and just try to nurse them through.
Yep.
So
and they'll come now as the warmer weather comes along. They'll come through good. We've spoken about the fairways. We'll talk about the driving range a little bit shortly, and you spoke about trees. Now, the club at the moment has gone through a process with what we call a bushland management plan. We've just completed a tree survey, which we're getting the final report through at the moment. How important is that tree report, and particularly the bushland management plan, to the club now, but also what it means for the future and our dealings, particularly with council as well?
Yeah, I think the club's been working really hard over the last few years, even prior to when I arrived, but especially over the last couple of years, we've really worked hard at getting this bushland management report done, and gives the club direction, and the council can see that the club's going in the right direction with the revegetation of the course, and then the other side of it is obviously the tree removal and maintenance of the trees. And so the survey, we did a tree survey as well to complement that report. And basically, there's about 17% of the trees we surveyed were river red gums. They're native to Melbourne, to Victoria. So they're
You didn't bring them with you, did you?
Non-native, no, they've been here for a while. So obviously planted over the years, and so that's 17% of 2,000 trees are the river red gums, and they're great trees in their right environment, but they can sort of extract about 1,000 litres a day per tree of moisture or water out of the ground. So around those fairway edges and tree greens, those tree roots are really invading those areas. So that's one target sort of tree that we need to target. But so yeah, it's a great document for the club to have, and moving forward, and I guess the members can probably expect to see some tree removal over the next 6 months or so, and into the future, targeting around greens, and we've just done a greens replacement or improvement program to get us to this point, and we still need to go further and actually address the main issues around the greens. So,
and I guess it's important for members to know, that report it'll obviously go to the board, but once it's gone through the board and approved through council, it'll be a document that's accessible for members to have a look through if they're interested, and it'll really set the plans for the future, and it's, ultimately it'll it'll help you guys with presenting the golf course and providing a bit of quality turf.
Yeah, and we've got obviously Paul Kenny, the horticulturalist here, and all the volunteers that help out through that. And we've just planted 4,500 plants this year. 2,000 of those were Banksias, so trees. So that was fantastic, and the council are really happy with what we're doing there. And yeah, that's fantastic. That's going to obviously keep going through into the future as well each year. So
yeah, now I know we've had various discussions with council, and for members, we get a lot of questions about our lease, which is coming up, and that's a key part of our negotiations. Well, not our negotiations, but demonstrating to council that we are committed to the environment, the course, the land that we look after for them. So now that we've got in that place, it also opens those discussions. Another thing that pops up occasionally from members is regarding our paths that are out on the golf course. Now we've got a bit of a mix of hard surface and also our what we've done with softening, I guess, the connections between greens and tees with some of those areas being turfed. Do you want to have a quick chat about, I guess, some of the hard surface paths, and ideally we would like to rectify some of the ones, particularly the ones that have got the edges a bit knocked off, because they're, one, unsightly, and in some respects a bit of a safety hazard, but also the turfed areas and some plans with those and how we manage those, I guess, particularly through the winter months.
Yeah, I guess the course is really not a cart course as such. Like having cart paths wouldn't be ideal around and really hard to fit in around this course. But there are some paths out there that need to be hard stand paths. Obviously there's too much congregation of traffic that we have to have them hard pathed. So yeah, we need to address those. Obviously that need to be updated and renovated. So there's obviously edges that are falling away on asphalt and stuff like that. So doing a crossover on 8, we're going to concrete all that crossover on 8 there, across the access to the shed driveway. But yeah, I think with the carts, obviously it'd be ideal if members were happy to walk more than take carts. It's obviously a lot more wear on the course if we're taking carts out in the course. So I'd say to members, if we can walk, we should walk. It'd be ideal. But yeah, look, we're certainly doing that, assessing all those pathways in the future. And there's some other options we're going to use in terms of protecting the grass in high traffic areas. Is sort of like a lawn underlay, which handles the traffic a bit more than just the standard turf.
So were that lawn underlay almost off the end of paths and in some of those high traffic areas? All
those pathways, obviously exit entry points, you're always going to have a lot of wear there on that turf. So they're the areas we'll look at putting this matting in and having the turf in high quality.
Yep. So. Okay. Now another big topic that pops up all the time is Parramatta grass. And we talk about it all the time. Now we have just started a program again with a number of member volunteers. What's the plan there? What are we doing with Parramatta?
Parramatta is an interesting one because it's such a high prolific seeder. So it produces so much seed per year that the seed bank is the main problem. So although we can go out and spot spray and kill that adult plant, it's what's underneath that plant is the real problem with that seed bank. So Parramatta, the seed can lay there 10 years without germinating and then germinate. So that's the problem with Parramatta grass, is that we can keep chipping away with spot spraying it, and obviously that's worked pretty well in the past, but then obviously we've stopped for I think 12 years or so of doing that with the member volunteers. And I guess it comes back to what's sustainable into the future. So if we keep chipping away at spot spraying, for the next 20, 30 years, it'll be okay. But if we stop, then we're going to get germination and back to square one almost. So it's such a hard grass to control, and a lot of clubs don't even bother. I know Royal Melbourne is one that sort of lets it go to a point, but and some other clubs down that way, and even around here, obviously budgets of some clubs don't allow to treat it, and such a hard one to get rid of. But I guess the only way to remove it is to excavate that seed bank out and start again with
a big process.
And regrass. So you're talking about regrassing around every fairway, which is a big job, and you've got to get rid of all that material as well. So. Look, we've got that happening. Obviously the members are keen to do that. We've got about half a dozen, I think, 2 groups. We've got 12 members so far. 2 groups to rotate through Mondays to spot spray that. And we started on the 3rd the other day, so we've got the 3rd hole done. So we're doing that. Obviously, we do spray pre-emergent in the roughs as well for pole control, which also does stop the germination of Parramatta to some degree as well. So that's happening as well. But yeah, there's other things we can do. Obviously, strip it out, regrass it. We can look at areas that are heavily infestated and do that. But yeah, spot spraying is probably the
best
main
form of attack at the moment.
at the
So,
moment,
and recognise our volunteers as well.
Yeah,
who do a great job.
Fantastic.
Not just for that, but
even you know, back when it started 20 years ago, 30 years ago when they started, that was an amazing program they had going. But there's always some issues with that as well. Spraying Roundup, there's a lot of damage can happen with spraying Roundup. So.
But they all go through an induction process,
exactly.
So very good. And the next topic I just wanted to touch on was we've got fantastic practice facilities here at Mount Lawley. It's one thing that sets us apart from probably most courses, particularly in the metropolitan area. Our driving range, the tee itself. I just wanted to touch on that, and I guess where we're at with that tee surface. There's maintenance practices again there, which keeps that tee in play. It's heavily used, I know. Golf in general has just gone through the roof in recent months, and our practice range is it's very similar in the sense that it's getting a lot of use. What's happening with the tee? What can we do to maintain at least a healthy surface on that tee?
Yeah, I guess the issue with the tee itself is the age of the tee. It's I think close to 25 years old now. And we'll have a look at some plugs there and show the depth of thatch there that's accumulated over the years, because obviously it gets a lot of wear. So the more wear, the more fertiliser goes down to try to recover that wear, and you're growing a lot of thatch. And if you're not renovating it, and that generally what happens to practice tees, they don't get renovated enough because people want to use them all the time. So that gets missed, and then obviously we end up with a thatch layer that's, well, the one we've got is over 100 mil deep. So that's the main problem with trying to produce quality turf, that it got that huge thatch layer there. Plus, the turf has been chipped out for 25 years without being replaced. So we expect a lot, I think, from that small patch of turf, considering the amount of balls being hit there, especially over this year. I suppose COVID hit at a time where we were preparing that tee for winter, and we had, I think I was here by myself for a week, and we had low numbers of staff for a few weeks. So that was probably not really the priority for us. We're looking at other things in terms of the greens, and so the preparation going into winter is the key. Obviously getting it as good as we can into summer, and obviously we oversowed it in recent years as well. Oversowing is okay and it produces a surface, but also when we put a cool season grass in there, we will get pole infestation as well. So, and then we struggled to control that pole without killing the oversown ryegrass or whatever we put in there. So oversowing is probably not really ideal, because we're creating pole that can be tracked onto the other greens and around the surrounding areas. So that's short term. It's obviously try to produce as much grass there as we can and recover. And we are seeing good recovery now. So it's just.
So have we got some renovation practices coming up on the tee to assist that?
We'll try to renovate it in the middle of summer when the grass is growing at its best. So I think we're targeting early January there, when it's a bit quieter. Take the tee out of play, or the top tee out of play. Maybe do it in two different halves, so we can use half of it still. Give it a good renovation, and then do the other half when it's recovered. So that's probably the short-term fix. Long-term or medium-term is probably to redo the tee, reconstruct the tee, and I think make it a lot bigger. Obviously the master plan shows it being potentially 1.5 times bigger than what it currently is, with an all-weather strip at the back. It can be used through winter, and then also when you're renovating it can be used as well, so we're not down the front. So that area could be amazing. Obviously there's a chipping green down there that's pretty old as well, and that could be updated, and that whole area could be second to none over here. Could be really, really good. So.
And again, elevate us to another level. Touching on renovations, maybe we want to talk about what's coming up. This year we're not doing a heavy program on the greens itself, but the fairways, they're getting done, I believe, once the club championships are finished. Is that right?
Yeah, so the greens, obviously we did a major renovation when we actually took them out of play back in April. So we wouldn't do that again this year, but we'll just do some minor ones on the greens. So smaller tines, they recover quickly. Like 2 weeks ago we did the 6 mil hollow tine, and they were recovered within a week. So that's the sort of thing we'll do over the summer period, just a bit of light aeration and minimal. And then obviously a major sort of renovation next spring, and even autumn we'll do a fairly big one in autumn as well. But the cooch areas, we've got that program for November, so I think it's the 30th of November and the 1st of December. We've got a contractor in, so 9 holes closed each day, and coring the fairways with the inch hollow time. At the same time, the ground staff will be doing the tees and surrounds, coring the tees and surrounds, so on those holes. So, and you can also expect to see a little bit of verti cutting as well on the tees and surrounds through November. Once the club championships are finished, we'll start doing some light verti cutting on those and try to take the grain out of those areas, especially the surround, so you can play a bump and run shot pretty well with those surrounds, and they're nice and tight, recover well. So.
Now we're starting to come in, obviously autumn at the moment, leading into some warmer months, summer coming up. Water is a big challenge. Members may not know, but we draw from the aquifer, and we've got bores that we put that into our holding pond. But we have an allowance. The Department of Water just don't give us free rein on water, unfortunately. We have an allowance which we have to manage every year. Do you just want to touch on that and what that has and how we manage that around the golf course?
Yeah, so we're licensed for about 370 megalitres per year, and we're coming up to our renewal release of the licence next year. And it looks like the Water Board, the Water Corporation are looking to save some water obviously here and there, so a lot of clubs are being asked to reduce by potentially 10% or more. So we're kind of expecting that next year. But in terms of what we do, we obviously try to save water as much as we can. A lot of the sprinkler heads on the sides of the edges of the fairways, we have made them part circle now, so they're not hitting the tree line and watering the native plants. They don't obviously like the water anyway too much, so especially the salt that's in the water. So yeah, we've saved a lot on those fairway edges, and it's just a matter of managing. We've got a water budget, obviously we work to make sure we hit the targets each month and annually. So. Yeah, the boys use on the ground stuff. We use moisture probes on the greens pretty much every week, and keep an eye on the moisture levels there and keep them optimum for play and for plant health. So.
And just finally, we'll just touch on, we've got a nursery down near the ground shed, which we're just going through a process at the moment of I guess renovating and developing some bent grass in there. So I'm assuming that's I know it's the 007, I don't assume. But also looking at some turf nursery in there for some of the Santarana cooch as well.
Yeah, so the nursery down there is quite large, and obviously we don't have a need to have so much bent grass on hand. We're not going to be sodding greens. When we do eventually start the greens replacement program, they'll be seeded. Basically, we don't have enough turf to do 6 or 7 greens at once. You either sod them all or you seed them all. So we'll reduce that bent grass down to a more manageable, well, necessarily for us. So, and then the other half we're going to put into cooch grass, so Santarana. So at the moment we don't have any Santarana on hand, so we pretty much buy most of it in. So half of that will be Santarana. So.
All right. Well, thank you, Rod. It's been a pleasure talking with you. We talk daily, but I think it's important that members get to hear from the expert, so to speak. It's been fantastic having you here for the past 2 years. Are you enjoying it at the club?
I love it. I mean, I think if I didn't love it, I'd probably go back home. Probably not quite at the moment when COVID's so bad in Melbourne, but I miss Melbourne obviously. But the job's great here, and members and yourself and the board are great to work with, and that's why I'm still here. So, and hopefully long into the future.
It's fantastic having you here. I'm excited about where you're going to take the course. We've got a really good team of staff out on the golf course assisting you along the way, and we hope members, when they see them out there, appreciate what you guys do day in, day out. You get up early in the morning, and it's not an easy task looking after a golf course. It's not like a little patch of turf at home. Yeah,
look, we've got 10 full staff, and they're a great bunch of guys. We've really come a long way in the last year or so. Got some young guys there that are doing their apprenticeships and that, and Liam obviously assistant now, and he's been there for a couple of years now too. So we're just really starting to gain some good ground there as a team, and there's only 10 guys, but we get a lot done. So they're great. So thanks to them, and they're making my job a bit easier, along with yourself. Thanks to yourself and the board and the members, really. The members for putting up, I suppose, with 3 months of temporary greens, and they put up with a lot. So we thank them for that, and the greens will be a lot better for it. So
Okay. Well, thanks, Rod. Well, knuckles it, because we're still not supposed to shake hands. Really appreciate your time today, members. I hope you've got a bit out of that. It is probably an extensive video, but the intent was really to keep you well informed about what's happening on the golf course. If you've got any other questions regarding the course or anything relating to the club, make sure you touch base with myself through the office, and I'll obviously refer any queries that I'm not sure of through to Rod. Thank you, and we hope you enjoy your golf.